deportation status, or his immigration status in the United States, I should say.
Who is protecting Fethullah Gülen? CIA?
Well, yes, there was a relationship, obviously, between Mr. Gülen and the CIA, but more recently, especially after information surfaced that the government of Turkey might seek to have Mr. Gülen extradited for some charges he's facing in Turkey, it came to my attention that Mr. Gülen has quite a phalanx or a collection of U.S. congressmen on his side, members of Congress in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, and I've been told that that the number is 50. 50 members of Congress are protecting Mr. Gülen from any attempt to have him extradited from the United States to Turkey.
First, do you know who are these congressmen? The 15 congressmen, do you know the names?
Yes, many have shown up at seminars sponsored by the Gülen organization. They include the two Pennsylvania senators, Bob Casey, Democrat, and Pat Toomey, Republican. Also, Senators Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Chris Murphy of Connecticut, Robert Menendez, senator from New Jersey, and several others in the House of Representatives. But altogether, they number about 50. Well, we have to recall that Graham Fuller, and I have documents from the Central Intelligence Agency that were released from the 1980s, basically stating that Graham Fuller was the right-hand man of CIA Director William Casey. And we know that Mr. Fuller has been involved in CIA activities in Islamic countries ranging from Afghanistan and Pakistan all the way through Turkey, Azerbaijan, Iraq, and it also is quite clear that we now know there was some relationship between the Tsarnaev brothers, who are accused of the bombing of the Boston Marathon, and Graham Fuller, because their uncle, Ruslan Tsarnaev, or he changed his name to Ruslan Tsarny, was married to Graham Fuller's daughter. So Graham Fuller was the father-in-law of the uncle of the two accused bombers of the Boston Marathon, and this goes to show Mr. Fuller's operations in post-Soviet Caucasus, in Georgia, in Chechnya, in Ingushetia, and in the other republics of southern Russia. Now, Mr. Fuller would have also been involved in what I was told by U.S. intelligence sources of Mr. Gülen's help in supplying the Chechens when they were then under the presidency of Dzhokhar Dudayev, who was killed, of course, in a Russian attack in 1996. Well, Mr. Gülen, of course, represents a perceived moderate Islamic tendency. And, of course, the United States would want to advance such a philosophy or a tendency in its purported battle with groups like Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, Daesh. So it makes perfect sense that for example, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, that a moderate would have influence in the former largely Muslim republics rather than, say, the Wahhabists or Salafists from Saudi Arabia. So that would be the interest, at least on the surface, of the CIA's interest in supporting and making an arrangement with Mr. Gülen. As I mentioned, with the radicalization of these groups in the Middle East, the CIA would be interested in having Mr. Gülen and his vast network of businesses and religious schools to assist in moderating the Islamic outreach that we see in various countries, including in Central Asia. So that would be the number one interest. He would open doors into places like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and other countries where he's active, including, I should say, countries in Africa that have significant Muslim populations, where the Turkish government has also been very active in trying to make inroads.
Do you mean that the United States are making operations in these countries that you mentioned through the Fethullah Gülen schools? Is that what you mean?
Well, I think partly, yes, that the schools are helpful in identifying recruits. The CIA has often used religious groups to gain influence and to recruit agents. They've used Christian missionaries all over the world. They've used Buddhists in countries in Asia. The Dalai Lama himself, the head of the Tibetan branch of Buddhism, himself is a known CIA asset and has been for decades. So using religious figures, or whether they're religious or lay officials, is something that the CIA has used for a number of years, including using the Vatican Bank to launder money for operations in Latin America. This comes as no surprise. The CIA has been using religious figures and religious groups since its very founding in 1947. This comes as no surprise. The CIA has used the universities to recruit agents, again, for many, many years. Georgetown University and the Georgetown Foreign Service School in Washington is known as a huge recruitment campus for the CIA, as is Columbia University in New York, Princeton University in New Jersey, Harvard and Yale. And the fact that the CIA has agents of influence as teachers, like with religious figures, comes as no surprise. And you'll find these agents of influence in many different walks of life, including, obviously, as teachers. Countries around the world have made visits to U.S. embassies and have talked to the CIA, their politicians, their businessmen, their even journalists. Many journalists also have relationships with the CIA, and it doesn't mean that people like Mr. Gülen was set up by the CIA, but certainly he's maintained a relationship with them. I'm often reminded that when Ayatollah Khomeini flew from Paris back to Iran, when the Shah fell, half of the people on Khomeini's plane were said to have been CIA agents. So you'll find these people in almost any place of interest. But while he's in Pennsylvania, he's protected not only by his status as a legal resident, but as I mentioned, 50 members of the Senate and House are basically in his court, and the word is any attempt by Turkey to try to extradite Mr. Gülen back to Turkey is a non-starter with these 50 Democrats and Republicans in the U.S. Congress.
Şimdi Ergün, biz bu röportajı Perşembe günü saat 5 ile 7 arası yaptık. Röportajdan çıktık ve internet siteleri, haber